Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast. This is your host, Brennan Catuli, and we're here today for episode number 8 with Kelli Reese. Kelli Reese is a spiritual coach, and she actually was a former CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization and ended up turning into the intuitive spiritual side of coaching. And she is really driven towards motivating, empowering, and inspiring women. And she does a lot of work within life and soul readings. So there's a lot to uncover within spirituality, within mental health, and how a lot of different topics can play a part into our own mental wellness and our own approach to how we seek out having a purpose, a destiny, a goal within our life. So, Kelli, if you want to introduce yourself and speak a little bit more about your coaching and just a little bit about of what you enjoy, any hobbies, and what you're currently doing today.
Okay. Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here. As you said, I am a former CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization. I have a very solid business background, but I've also been on my spiritual path for more than 20 years. And it came time in my career, had a 17-year career in business, and it came time in my career where I was being called to align my spiritual path that I've been on for all that time with what I actually did for a living. And that's not to say that I didn't use my intuition and, utilize the pieces of my spiritual path and my spirituality within my career. It just wasn't as impactful. It was reaching, a small group of people rather than far and wide. You can probably hear my cat meowing. And so I now live in Tulum, Mexico, and I had come to Tulum after I walked away from my job for a 8-day trip that I didn't realize was going to be so life-changing. I just thought I was coming with a friend. And when I was here, Tulum was actually feeling like, don't leave. But I had a husband to go back to and a life and all these things. And so I couldn't at the time really see how I could make it work to stay here. So now I work with women and I do readings for people, men and women. And that happens for people all over the world because I do it online. And I coach women and I work with them to actually feel confident in their own heart and their own internal guidance, and so that they can follow where it's leading them. A lot of times women are questioning themselves and they're afraid to trust what they're feeling in their heart. They're disregarding their instincts for fear of what might happen if they share themselves fully or do what they feel instinctively. I work with a lot of people who are looking for clarity on their path and confidence in their voice and just security and self-acceptance in who they are.
Wonderful, Kelli. And we'll dive more deeper into how you go about your readings and your coaching a little bit later on. But I think as a stepping stone for this all, I think it's important to really talk about how spirituality entered your life, because at least for me, I know there's a very big distinction between spirituality for a lot of people. A lot of people, for spirituality, it's religion. And if it's not religion, what is spirituality to a person? And for me, I've been kind of going through this limbo stage of trying to uncover my own spirituality and face, what I have to uncover in this avenue that I've really been trying to piece together. So I think it's important to speak about how spirituality entered your life and when did it really become a stepping stone to leading you into this direction?
Okay, that's a great question. So I've always been connected to, my intuitive guidance. It's always something that was there. For a long time, I turned it off because I just didn't want to know the things that I was seeing, feeling, hearing. That happens for a lot of people who are psychic. I'm more of a practical mystic, so that's how I sort of label myself, because I have this business background, but then I also burn incense and, I have crystals in my apartment. But I really come at spirituality from a practical standpoint of how to bring it into your daily life when you have a daily life. We're not sitting at the top of a mountain meditating for 20 hours a day. That's not my idea of spirituality. It's integrating my beliefs, my feelings, my intuition into my daily life, and being true to me, and really having a relationship with myself, which is really a relationship with source. And so I use source. Some people say God, some people say universe. I use source and universe interchangeably. It really doesn't matter to me what you use and where it comes from for you. For me, that, once I turned everything off and just said, I don't want this anymore, I became really angry and bitter and upset. This was when I was in my 20s living in New York City. And a friend invited me to an AA meeting and to hear him speak. And so, of course, I just thought I was going to hear my friend speak. And as I'm sitting there, I'm looking around the room going, why are these people so happy? In my bitterness and my anger of just being disconnected. But I was on a search for, like, what is wrong with me? This isn't normal. I know that I shouldn't feel this way. And so while I was sitting in that AA meeting, I saw the 12 steps on this giant poster behind somebody else who was speaking. And it was a woman who was my age, and her story sounded awfully familiar to mine. And then when I saw, I saw God in the third step, and it just like popped out at me. And I remember clearly saying to myself, right, God is missing. That's what's missing in my life. And as I looked around and I scanned the room, and I was like, well, these people do look kind of happy. And I just, like, something shifted in me where I became willing to follow what it was they were doing in order to get out of where I was, because I just knew I couldn't stay there anymore. I had this feeling of, like, just tell me what it is I'm supposed to do here and I'll do it, so I can get the hell out of here. That was the attitude that I had. So I completely dove into the 12 steps in the AA program, and I credit AA with saving me. That's where I connected to my spirituality. It is in New York in a time in the 90s where I was able to explore all sorts of things. And I was going to meditation parties, and we were doing past life regression. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that was happening. And I was also in traditional therapy. And so, it was just a time where I devoted myself to my inner growth. And I haven't let up on that ever since. About 3.5 years into my time in AA, I realized I wasn't an alcoholic, which was a little inconvenient because I had amazing friends in a program that was working for me. And I was like, I don't have an addiction to alcohol. What I realized is I was addicted to escape. And alcohol was one of the ways that I did that, but it wasn't the only way.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Kelli. And it seems like it's actually been a recurring topic that I've seen through a lot of people that I'm connecting with now, is they've actually gone to AA and they've uncovered that alcohol or an addiction was just one way that they actually found out their actual challenge and their actual issue. I had someone who the previous guest, she actually had a sex addiction. So there's a lot of things that AA is able to uncover. And I think it's great that it still provides a great foundation and structure for someone to, take control of their life and figure out what they truly want to follow and uncover. And I think the escape is it's such a topic that people are going through today. It's such a challenge that people are going through. So what was kind of your first step when you were facing these escapes and coping mechanisms? What was kind of a routine or habit that you were able to go to try to counteract this issue?
Well, I definitely had I drank a lot. It wasn't like I went to A and said, oh, I need the 12 steps, but I certainly don't drink. I drank all through my teens as a means for escape, but I also turned to voice and sex and weed, pot. I smoked a lot of pot, and then I did some harder drugs too. And so, I explored all of those things in the quest to get out of myself and not be present in my body 100% fully me. So it was quite a range of things. And all of that just led to me feeling hollow and having this just pit in the center of my stomach that I just kept trying to fill it with all these different things, and nothing worked until I went to AA. And the word God jumped off of the screen, off of the poster behind a person. And it wasn't like I immediately mended my relationship with God. That's been a long path for me for, feeling source in my life and understanding what that means to me, because it's different for every person. But allowing myself to choose a different way, and staying sober for 3.5 years. I rarely drink now. I don't, it's not something that I do. I like a glass of wine every once in a while, but, it's not, I don't escape anymore. That's the difference. I want to be present for all of it. I want to be here. That's the difference.
That's so awesome, Kelli. I think it's great that you're able to really use these kind of that perspective change, and whether it's God or whether it's a meeting that you go to or a person that causes this connection or causes that spark within you to say, oh, that's what I need. That's the change that I need. I think that's so important. And just going to AA, even if you're not an alcoholic or going through addiction, can be so life changing, just to see people's stories and how, they see a higher light within their life. And I think this is a great turn to a lot of positive routines and different habits that you've been able to use now through, promoting a more healthy and a more mentally well lifestyle. So if you want to speak more about kind of your own self-discovery transition, I know you deal a lot with meditation, yoga, and some of these routines that promote being mentally well and a healthy lifestyle. So if you want to speak more about that and how those have kind of benefited your own perspective and mindset towards your own life.
Yes, I'd love to. I do want to say that this is not an advertisement for like walking away from AA. Clearly, this is my path. AA is an amazing program, and I still have incredible friends in the program with decades of sobriety. And it just, for me, my path. When I realized I wasn't an alcoholic, I was actually, I wasn't upset, because I was at a place that was like, things are so much better, but I had no idea that stepping away from that program, leaving my friends, leaving the program, and leaving the structure where, that would lead me to where I am today. But I had to leave. I had to do what I had to do. And that's part of my process, is following my heart. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense, but being clear enough in my own self-assuredness and the trust that I have in source and that I'm led, that has been a big piece for me. And I've developed that relationship over time by doing the internal work. I'm a huge proponent for like going in and doing the work, and whatever is in that way of you living, the life that your soul is calling you to live. Work on that. Move through it. Trust that you're going in the right direction, when sometimes it feels like you just want to turn around and run backwards because you know what's back there. It's like the familiar is like so seductive. But yes, I have a daily meditation practice. I journal, and part of my practice is following where I'm led and trusting that I am on the right path, because sometimes that brain bully just comes in and wants to take us down and keep us safe. And that's the last thing we need. We don't need to run backwards. We need to keep moving forward,
I love that perspective. I think it's so important to focus on the positives and, focusing on what you can change from those negatives within your life and facing those fears and really going through the change that needs to be made within your life. I think struggle is something that I definitely believe is necessary within your life to be able to reach a new height and reach a new level. And as you've overcome difficulties, what was your way to face these issues, whether it's within a relationship, a business, or a personal difficulty? How were you able to kind of set the ground and say, all right, this is what I need to face and this is what I need to overcome in order to move forward?
I've always had either a mentor, a coach, a spiritual mentor, something like that in my life. I didn't come to coaching because it was something that I just jumped into. Throughout my entire career, I was doing coaching for employees and the people that I worked with, even my friends. It's like, you're not happy. Let's figure out why and get you in a happy place. Like, even if it meant the employees left the organization, I wanted them to be happy, because happy people on the planet is just a better planet. They're happy, then it reverberates out to everybody in their world. So for me, that the piece that really stands out for me is that I choose to do the work. It doesn't mean the work is easy. It doesn't mean that I don't have hard days or I fall down and I pick myself up, but I have a strong support system, and I also have that unshakable connection that I have to source and to my own internal guidance. And I know when those brain bully gremlins are in there trying to take me down, and it happens. It's, and they do that through fear. A lot of me getting to where I am today was stepping into this place where I was like, okay, yes, this scares me. I'm going to do it anyways. And that was not easy, because fear was a big part of why I didn't do a lot of things. And once I started taking those chances and seeing that, oh, okay, so I survived that, I started building up, a reserve of examples where it's like, okay, well, look at what I just came through. My mom passed away from cancer when I had 60 days in AA, and I stayed sober through the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons I feel I was led to AA as well, because if I hadn't found AA and then she died and I was still where I was, miserable and upset and had no support system whatsoever in New York City, I really don't know that I'd be here, honestly.
That's so wonderful to hear, Kelli. I'm so happy that it worked out for you, because it's definitely it's hard to face difficult times alone. And I think that is a big topic, because a lot of people, whether they're going through an addiction, an abuse, or a mental illness, they often try to do it alone and not seek those relationships elsewhere, which definitely brings a lot of negative habits and routines into your life, and it can really drag you into hard times. And I've definitely been in those times as well. I've been in countless days where I just didn't want my life to continue to go on, but I was able to see that there was a bigger purpose finally, and that you didn't need to succumb to alcohol or drugs, or putting yourself down to try to fix any of these issues. And I think that's why this big mental wellness lifestyle change is coming about throughout these days. And why don't you speak about just about relationships more? I know you said that having that support system is key. So how are relationships that important and necessary for the support, whether it's through speaking about your own mental problems, or even just having a support system and guidance throughout your life? Because therapy, in and of itself is definitely a very huge proponent today. And as well, different types of coaching has been coming about. So, how is that interpersonal connection so important within our own life?
Yeah, it's imperative, at least for me, having people in my life who know me and who I trust and who love me for who I am. I don't have to be any other way than me. I can't be any other person than I am. And so knowing that those relationships are there for me is incredible, and that I'm there for them as well. But, I try to have people in my life who will call me on my BS because I'm pretty good at BSing at times. Even now, I can talk myself out of the thing that's the most best for me easily. And so I know that about myself, and having people to bounce things off of, to support me through the harder times, that's important for me, and it's important for them, because relationships are dual. It goes both ways, and I feel amazing when I'm able to help my friends and support others and clients through the places that they are in and the challenges that they're having. There is this that everything's temporary. The pain, the frustration, the whatever we're feeling in any given moment is temporary, and it feels at times like it's never going to end, like there is no light at the end of that dark tunnel. And so having other people in your life who have gone through the darkness and come out the other side is important. Having people who can support you in that place is important. But really just having people you can turn to, so you don't feel that there's no hope, or there isn't, or you're in a place that is unique to everybody else, because everybody has been in a place where they're feeling hopeless or upset or angry, and it doesn't always feel like that when you're there.
That's wonderful. And then it seems like these challenges come about a lot of times when we're alone, and having these outlets of relationships is so important. But what mental illnesses really come to be, it's when you're alone, and it's learning to love yourself first before you can really express and help others, which I've come to learn. So I needed to focus on myself and find how to love and be comfortable within my own mind and body first, before I can go out and try to really help others through my own experiences, and with you doing the same as well. So how really did you face the issue of loving yourself, caring for yourself? Those are topics that are becoming very large in terms of the self-love, self-care, self-help. People need to learn that at the end of the day, you are alone, and you need to learn how to be open and honest with yourself. And I think journaling is a great way that I've been able to uncover that. But if you want to speak more about whether it was ways that that you faced trying to really uncover how you cared and loved yourself throughout your times of difficulty, and throughout your times of success and prosper.
Well, it hasn't always been a world filled with rainbows and bunnies. It's a process that I still work on every single day. And a lot of the things that we do, our growth journey, they are practices, and they're things that we have to practice on a daily basis. It's not like, oh, I'm done. Because stuff comes back, it's like things that you think you've worked through. It's like, oh, there that is again. It's just you get better at seeing it, so you don't go into like the deep dark hole to the bottom of the ditch and start to set up shop there. You actually see it before you tumble down. I have to say that the most frustrating thing for me to hear when I was not feeling good was, the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. It's just like, what does that mean? It was really frustrating, because I couldn't get clear on anything. Like, I didn't know what my favorite color was, or what I liked to do when I was in my 20s. And so much time escaped, I didn't even know. And so really making that commitment to myself was the first step, allowing me to materialize, to create that relationship. But it's that relationship itself is like any other relationship, you build it What do you like? What do you want to do? It's like, take yourself out for coffee and get to know yourself. Do you even like coffee? But also saying what needs to be said is one of the most important things, like knowing that I have my own back, that I'm here for myself, that I'm not relying on anybody else to like come in with this, like be a rescuer of me. I am that person. I'm responsible for myself. And that relationship with self in a sense that I know if there's something off, I feel it, and I'm not, I might be afraid to say it, but I will still say what needs to be said, because I'm saying it for me, not for the other person, and that's the thing that's taken me a long time to understand. Is I spent a lot of time just being quiet and, keeping my mouth shut, even when I knew, like, because I know a lot of things, when I knew things about what was happening. And I've learned that as soon as I stop, and it's been far too long, it's much more challenging than if I just do it when I first have that courageous conversation, when I first feel something off, and people appreciate that as well. But that builds the relationship with myself, which in turn builds relationships with others. It's not an easy piece, because there's so much noise about like, self-care and what it means. For me, it's having my own back, knowing I'm responsible for myself, that I show up for myself, not relying on somebody else to show up for me. And saying what needs to be said, speaking my truth. It's scary.
Perfect. I appreciate you speaking about such an important topic. It's definitely one of the first steps if you want to seek and create change within your own life. And I think let's transfer more towards your coaching and reading side. So the question that I have to ask is really, what drove you to want to empower women? Empower women, especially through motivation, inspiration, and are you taking some of your business expertise and your self-discovery expertise? Talk a little bit about how you are trying to empower and inspire women today.
Okay. Yeah, I know how painful it is to question myself, even when I know, like, I could feel, there are times in my life where I could feel what I needed to do and I didn't do it, or the direction I needed to go and I didn't follow it, or what I needed to say and I didn't say it. It's so painful in that place. And too many women are questioning themselves. They're really just afraid to trust what they feel in their heart, or they disregard their instincts just out of fear. They fear what might happen if they share themselves fully. And so because I know that pain so well, I really want to help other people get out of that place. And so that's the women that I work with. And those are the women who choose to work with me. They find me. So I'm helping them find clarity on their path and confidence in their voice and be secure and have self-acceptance in who they are. And I work with lots of different women, lots of entrepreneurs, some people who are in executive roles, and they fear speaking up in the boardroom. And then I also work with women in relationships, and they're wondering if they're still with the right partner, or they're questioning where they are. All the women I work with are seeking clarity. That's the through line. Yeah.
That's great. It's so important that people are able to see what you were able to uncover within your own life, and you're just bouncing back all of that knowledge for them to try to see how they can benefit their own life. And I think coaching is such a prosperous career for a lot of people today, and it's so great that so many people are seeking it out, because it's important that we're able to talk through our life with someone that won't have any judgment or any biases. It's that third party that's able to say, all right, here's a road that you didn't necessarily look at, or here's a road that maybe you should try to take. So it's such an important topic, and that also leads to the readings that you do. So you do life and soul readings, and I think if you want to take this time to explain a little bit more about these readings, how you structure and form it, and I'll be sure to have links to all your contacts and your readings to see if people who are listening do want to seek out one of these readings, because I think spirituality is definitely something that some people do need assistance on, and I think that these readings can provide a great insight to people's own lives today.
Sure, thank you. So I do. Some people use tarot cards. Some people use pendulum. Some people use what I use, which is called the Akashic Records, and so it's just a way that I can information that is part of your soul purpose, your life lessons, what you're doing in this lifetime, what you've been doing in between lifetimes. And this information is really clarifying and validating, because we also talk about people's soul gifts. And, you know, the soul gifts are one of my favorite things to look at, because there are different archetypes that we have, and they're just gifts that we have. And a lot of times people underestimate the impact that they can have just by showing up and being who they are. And I work with people who stay on and work with me after the readings. I work with them to get their archetypes, their soul gifts, we're using them in their career. Because when we're doing the things that come to us most naturally, when we're doing the things that are our gifts, that's when it feels like you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. It feels like, you know, the world's clicking. You wake up on Monday and you're super excited. And so I do a lot of readings for first timers. There's a lot of people who find me and they don't even know what the Akashic Records are. They were just led to me. And I know that people don't find me by accident. But then I do readings for people who've been on their spiritual path for eons. You know, it's just, I have a really lighthearted approach, and I make spirituality very approachable and readings very approachable. The Akashic Records are, if you've never heard of them, it's an energetic recording of your soul's journey throughout its existence. There's a lot in the Akashic Records. Every conversation, thought, action, decision, choice your soul has ever made is in there. It's an incredible resource, and it's vastly underutilized. And I use just a small part of it. It's like the Akashic Records it's an energetic place that we have access to, but it's not just for soul information. So I do a life path reading, which is really about like looking at your direction and path. If you feel like something's off, but you can't place your finger on what it is, that's a really good reading. And then I do a soul profile reading, which is really just a deeper dive. It's kind of like a soul defining reading that's packed with lots of different information and understanding about your soul's path and purpose. And both readings provide a lot of clarity and validation. And it's information you can use directly in your life.
Awesome, Kelli. It's great to hear about the different styles that people are approaching spirituality, and there's so much room to uncover within people's own interpretation and really roadmap throughout their own life. And I know you wrote 2 books, The Destiny Roadmap and The Relationship Roadmap. So really, before I ask my last question, if there's any tip or lesson, whether it's from those books or whether it's just from your own experiences, if you want to share a tip or lesson for the audience right now, that would be wonderful.
You know, when we're growing on our spiritual path, there comes a time where you're going to question things, where you know, you wonder where your life or your relationship or work is leading you. And those are the times where you're usually asking a lot of inconvenient questions, like, am I still in the right place? Should I move? Is this the right partner? You know, and those are happening for a reason. That is your soul calling you to something, to look at what else there could be. It doesn't necessarily mean that you leave any of those things, but you might retool and transform within those things. But a lot of times when those inconvenient questions happen, we don't want to answer them because we go right to the end and go, whoa, if I answer that, you know, that means I have to get a divorce. And then what happens to my kids? Then what about the house? And you go out to all of the, like, what possibly might have these dire outcomes, when you need to stay in the moment and exactly where you are and just be open to answering the questions. That's the first piece, is just be willing to explore what that is, even though it's scary, because I write about the place I call the void between one door closing and another door opening. It's like between what was and what will be. It's like this dark abyss, and we get there, and it's like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. No light switch, there's no GPS, nobody told me what to do when I got to this place of the unknown. And so that unknown place is the place where you already are there when you're questioning, when you're asking those inconvenient questions. And so that's the key that people don't usually understand, is you're there already. So the only choice is to go forward. The more that we struggle and try to hold on to what we know, the more painful it becomes.
That's awesome. I love that perspective, Kelli. And I think, throughout not only that advice, but the advice of this whole interview, everybody's going to gain some very insightful knowledge within what you've been able to experience and the work that you're doing now. So before I ask this last question, I just want to thank you again for being on here. It's been such a pleasure, and I really can't look forward more to how you continue to develop your own career and the way that you connect with other people. It's awesome to see that you left such a valuable company and organization to do what you truly love and follow your true inspiration. And you've experienced a lot, and it's truly shown that you have a lot of knowledge within life and its missions, its its roadmaps, its directions. So it's truly remarkable. And I think you'll definitely have some good insight towards this last question that I ask all my guests is, if you were to be writing a book right now, and it's throughout your whole life, so this one chapter of your present moment, you can say that it's, whether it's through 2018 or 2019, so the present current time that's been recent, what would kind of the chapter be of your life today? So who you have been, and who you are becoming today, what would kind of be that chapter of your life book for your present moment today?
That chapter for me is about, it's called Be Brave. And there's a lot of times where we need to exercise our courage muscle and be brave and step into that unknown place and be willing to move forward. And it's not easy to listen to the call of your heart and go where you're being told to go or do what it is you need to do for yourself. But I have found that through doing that, I have found the freedom and the grounding and the self-assurance and the love that I have always been searching for. There's no longer a deep pit or hole that I'm trying to fill. That hole was filled a long time ago. And I try to keep a sense of humor as I go through the challenging times, and that helps me be brave. And I really look at fear as me feeling like, if I feel like I want to throw up, then it's probably a good direction for me to go in. If it scares me to the point of like wanting to throw up, then I'm like, oh, there's something here. So I don't try to run away from my fear. I try to take its hand and walk boldly forward with my fear. Because fear is just wanting to tell you something it feels is important for you to know about so it can keep you safe, but it doesn't have to stop us.
I love that, Kelli. I love that perspective. It's so commendable that you tried to face that challenge head on, and it definitely speaks volumes to what you've been able to accomplish and what you're going to accomplish throughout your next years. And I have to thank you again. It's been such a pleasure. It was an honor to interview you, and really we'll have all the links to all of Kelli's work, her contact information, her website, her social media pages. So you'll be able to see more about what Kelli is doing now and reach out if you want to seek any advice within coaching. If you want to have a reading done by Kelli, we'll have all of the links as well to her books, The Destiny Roadmap and the Relationship Roadmap. So really, you'll be able to see a lot of information that Kelli is providing the world today with, such insightful knowledge. So I just have to thank you again, Kelli. It's been the 8th episode of the Mental Insights podcast, and it's truly an honor that you are here today with me.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. So keep doing what you're doing. It's so needed.
Thank you. I really appreciate